Welcome to the NBA Minutes to Win It podcast. I'm Jason Gilbo, JGilbo11. With me is Nick Rodriguez at NRodriguezDFS. We are taking a look at the first round matchups as far as DFS goes, making some predictions on who we think is going to advance. We won't be going each day by day as far as the slates are concerned, but you can refer back because these are the same matchups. You can also check out our cheat sheets. We'll be doing those daily as well. But jumping right into things, there's some solid first-round matchups to look at. Cleveland and Detroit is our first one that we are breaking down. Pistons actually won this season series here 3-1. Kind of an interesting turn of events there, but also I believe one of those games were towards the end where Cavs were resting some guys, so it doesn't really count. But looking at the matchups here, who really stands out to you as kind of the top option outside of LeBron that you want to get some exposure to?
Outside of LeBron, you can go Drummond. I think he'll be a nice play this week. He'll be going up against a smaller Tristan Thompson, which I think he can take advantage of offensive and defensive boards. Another guy to target for more tournaments, maybe Reggie Jackson on the Pistons side of things. Kyrie is inconsistent with his defense. So he's another guy to target if he's healthy, which I'm sure he'll play. And like you mentioned, LeBron's the obvious play. Love is a solid play, and Irving, of course.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And these are two teams that they don't bring a ton of value to the table, which is a little bit disappointing. But yeah, you're looking at LeBron as being the top play on certain slates, looking to him to really dominate the series. And as you mentioned, Jackson would be a solid play. And looking at his pricing towards the end of the season, it was a bit lower. And you look at that matchup with Irving, the Cavs did allow fantasy points a decent amount per game to point guards down the stretch. So I definitely like that. And as far as value guys, I mean, there's not much to really look at. There's no real sixth man on either of these teams that come off in our scores. So you can find, value elsewhere in other series. So I don't expect to be playing a ton of these guys. It just depends on what the slates shift out to be. If they were on a slate with a lot of West Coast games, I would probably just look at LeBron and pretty much move on from there.
Yeah, exactly, especially since these are two good defensive teams, and they both play with a slower pace, even though Cleveland picked it up ever since David Blatt went. But this is a series I would not target for fantasy purposes.
Yep, I definitely agree with there. So prediction time, I'm going with the Cavs in 5. I think maybe Detroit steals one at home, but Cavs roll through pretty easily for me.
Yeah, unfortunately, I have to agree with you. I think Detroit will take one, maybe game 1, just to keep everybody worried. But I think Cleveland takes it in 5.
Yep. Looking at the next one here, Toronto and Indiana. Toronto won the season series pretty handsomely, 3-1 by a fair amount. This is a series that's interesting because it does have some stars. And you look at Kyle Lowry, you look at these two teams defensively, they are solid. It kind of matches up like that Cleveland side and Pistons, where there isn't a ton of production in the front court, but in the back court, you're looking at guys like DeMar DeRozan, Kyle Lowry, Paul George, Monta Ellis, if he can pick it up. All decent price tags heading into the playoffs, and I think they are a decent discount from some of those top names.
Yeah, exactly. Especially with Lowry, I think towards the end of the season, his price dropped big time. He was resting a lot, wasn't playing as many minutes. So he could be cheap to start the series, which is one way to attack. DeRozan's another way, like you mentioned. Monta Ellis, not the best of defenders. And of course, Paul George is a guy to consider. He's been up and down, so I think he's more of a tournament play. But, it's Paul George and it's the playoffs, so I think he'll carry the team on his back.
Yeah, definitely. He's going to be logging pretty heavy minutes. If there's any guy to kind of consider off of the bench for Indiana, it's CJ Miles. Look, he is kind of a sharpshooter type player, dirt cheap. He is at small forward, so he can free some salary. If he gets 20, 25 fantasy points, that's what you're looking at from him. He can easily help alleviate, if you're paying up for a guy like Curry or Harden, he's kind of a guy that might need to be in there. although the matchup isn't too favorable for a lot of these positions as far as DVP goes, Miles could get some run against a weaker small forward, especially with Carroll injured. So he would be a guy to kind of consider. Outside of that, I mean, Valanciunas, he could be a difference maker. He's probably the cheap center that kind of stands out to me as far as the first round guys go.
Yeah, I agree with you. He's one of the ones that stick out to me as well. And the question I have for you is, what are your thoughts on Rodney Stuckey?
Stuckey's a guy who's interesting because he kind of possesses that same role, and he's been a little bit more consistent when he's been given it as far as comparison to Miles. Because you look at Stuckey, he is a guy who can rack up assists as well. We saw that down the stretch, 6, 4, and 2 over the 3 games that he kind of stepped in more so towards the last 2. I mean, for a cheap play at shooting guard, I don't mind him a bit, one bit here.
Yeah, I'm with you there. Salary reliever, especially on days where Harden, Curry, and other guys are playing, you're gonna want that stars and scrubs, and I think he fits pretty good in there.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the Toronto side of things, you're looking at DeMar DeRozan and Lowry being the guys who eat just huge minutes and production as far as usage goes. But you're looking, I mean, Norman Powell did slip in and play big minutes at the 2. An interesting play because you know what, he's still super cheap. He is going to log heavy minutes. So in comparison to Stuckey, Powell's kind of the safer guy as far as minutes go. But Stuckey's kind of the usage guy off the bench.
Yeah, I sadly have to agree with you again. Powell's been getting those heavy minutes, but like you said, Stuckey's playing with the second unit. He usually has more control, higher usage rate. So I'd probably lean his way.
Yeah. This one, I see kind of finishing out in 6 games. I think it's going to be a one that Paul George pushes this one to the test here, but I still think Toronto comes out on top. Just a little more offensive oomph than the Pacers go. So I'm rolling with the Raptors in 6. What about you?
I got the Raptors in 7. I
Ooh.
think Paul George can really carry this team. And, Toronto's a good team. I don't think they'll make the finals this year. I don't think they have enough depth yet, but I'm taking Toronto in 7.
Yeah, I like that call right there. That would be a fun series to watch. Next one, we got your hometown Miami Heat taking on the Charlotte Hornets. This is one where the season series was tied at 2. This one has some interesting plays in this game, and you look at the Heat and what they did towards the end of the season as far as pace of play goes. They really picked it up once Bosch sat, out with his injury, and this Heat team was really favorable as far as DFS goes, and I think really you look at all these guys and they're really in play for me. Standing, obviously Dwayne Wade, Goran Dragic, Whiteside, but Luol Deng might be my favorite play from this team in the first round.
Yeah, price considered, the production he's been putting up with the power forward position, and he's probably going to be at that 5K, 6K range. I think he's an excellent player. Should get 35 to 40 minutes. And, the production's there. So I really like him as well. It's a great call.
I mean, your favorite player, Hassan Whiteside, obviously not a strong matchup, matched up against Charlotte one bit. You're looking at Charlotte, average rebounding team. You're dealing with guys like Al Jefferson down low, Zeller, Marvin Williams as far as getting rebounds. So he's a guy, regardless of coming off the bench or starting, he's going to be one of the top centers to pay up for. But also, I don't see a ton of people paying up for him just because Curry and Harden just become more attractive options. But if you want to make a swerve in GPPs, I think he's going to be the way to go in this first round.
Yeah, exactly. As long as he's not over 9K, I'm willing to pay his price tag and drop from Curry or Harden, depending on the series, of course, and how things are going.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. Dragic, depending on his price tag, he's going to be the one I'm looking at. In that kind of cheaper, below 7K, below 7,500, because you're looking at all those other guys like Paul Lillard. They're going to be very expensive, but he stands out for me as a decent option who can get you that 35 to 45 fantasy point range. Draws a favorable matchup against Kemba Walker, who's not known for his defense one bit.
Yeah, especially if he gets hot like that Boston game on Wednesday. He was on fire, so he does have that upside. Eventually, that game turned around real quickly in the second half. I know you enjoyed it, but it's basketball. But he is a guy with big upside.
Yeah, definitely. As far as the value side of things on that Miami side, Josh Richardson is a guy I'm eyeing off the bench, a guy who was playing 25 plus minutes there down the stretch, a higher usage guy off the bench. And the shooting guard spot, pretty weak as far as, guys you want to pay up for. But you look at Richardson, you expect him to be pretty cheap here in the first round. And he's probably one of my favorite plays because if you look at Charlotte, they really struggled against shooting guards and guards in general most of the season.
Exactly. Have you ever seen Josh Richardson play?
I mean, I've watched him on TV, not personally with
Yeah,
my
on
own
TV.
eyes.
Well, I hope you saw him on TV with your eyes. He is one of the most exciting young basketball players in the league. A lot of fun to watch. Hits the three, can drive it in the paint, dish it to Whiteside. I mean, I think he's a great play. My heart speaking, but your head also saying he's a great play. So get him in your lineups if he's under, I'd say 4.8K. Do you think that's reasonable?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, obviously, we're not the Heat salaries aren't out yet.
Exactly.
But yeah, no, I definitely agree. I mean, he should be below 4,800 on both sides, and I think he's going to be one of the more important value plays on this slate.
Exactly. I'm with you there. But enough about the Heat. Who do you like on the Charlotte side?
Charlotte side, it's tough for me to pick on a lot of these guys. I mean, you're looking, I think Kemba Walker just stands out just because he's going to be such a high usage guy. But Al Jeff is one that I'm kind of intrigued with just because of his price tag. And I think his usage and minutes are going to pick up a little bit down here in the playoffs. I mean, Whiteside, obviously an elite shot blocker, but overall, I mean, the Miami Heat did allow, a friendly matchup to opposing centers at times this season. And Jefferson's a guy who, if he can get out, you get his perimeter shot going, it kind of takes away from Whiteside's presence down low.
Yeah, exactly. Hopefully, I think he should play minutes. I don't know if he's still on a minutes cap, but they're gonna need him if they want to match up with Whiteside big on big. Jefferson can really do some damage on the paint and with his shooting, like you mentioned.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons why if Jefferson was a post-up guy down low, then I wouldn't like him too much. But he is a guy who can, move around and hit pretty good offensively. But Nicholas Batum, he's a guy who expects to be ready for game one. If Batum was to sit or was to miss any sort of time, Kemba Walker becomes just a usage machine.
Oh, he becomes an elite play, and you can also go with Jeremy Lin, who's going to be a cheaper option probably than Josh Richardson.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. So I'll let you take the prediction first on this one since it's your Heat team.
I got the Heat in 4. No, I'm kidding. Realistically, I got them in 6. I think this is going to be a really close game. Every time we play Charlotte, it's been real close. Batum, I recommend using a tournament only. Yeah. First with his health, and the 2 games that I remember watching, one game we shut him completely down, and the other one he went absolutely off. So he's one of those guys I recommend for tournaments only.
Yeah, I definitely agree with you there. And I'm going to go with the same prediction. I think Charlotte does push this one a little bit, but I think Heat break away in 6. So next game, we got my hometown team, the Boston Celtics, taking on Atlanta. And this is by far the friendlier matchup as far as DFS goes, as far as pace. If you look at where they rank this season, Boston 3rd in the league, Atlanta 8th. And compared to the other 3 round games there, this one's going to be one that I expect to be the most high scoring from the Eastern Conference.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm looking at the previous scores. All of them were above at least 90 points. So, this is going to be a fast-paced, high-scoring game.
Yeah, definitely. And you look at these 2 teams, and they have a ton of weapons. They have a ton of value. So they bring a little bit of everything to the table. But I think the player that stands out the most to me is going to be Paul Millsap in this series. It's so hard to not like that guy. I mean, rebounds offensively. His defensive stats are just insane. So what are you laughing at? What did I
I was expecting you to say a Boston Celtic, maybe Isaiah Thomas or Jay Crowder, Avery Bradley, not Paul Millsap.
No, I'm not going to be a homer like you who just says, I only watch this on Whiteside. I don't watch any other basketball player in the league.
I watched Josh Richardson too. I admitted it. No, but I'm with you there. You spoke with your head, and Millsap is the play, in my opinion, in the entire Eastern Conference. He's the top play. Draws a favorable matchup. He has that huge upside. He can hit the 3-point shot, mid range, drive it. This guy does it all, especially against the Celtics.
Yeah, I mean, Boston ranks 25th in efficiency against power forwards. You also got to like Horford down low. I just don't think there's any matchup, especially with Boston being tougher on point guards this season. You expect Horford and Millsap to kind of carry the load here.
Exactly, and I also like Kent Bazemore a little bit. The minutes have been a little inconsistent towards the end of the year, but the matchup isn't too bad, and his price is going to be cheap. And we all know he can hit 20 fantasy points on a consistent basis. So he's another guy to really target if you're looking for a value play.
Yeah, it's a good call there. Boston struggled against small forwards this season, so I'll definitely be looking at them. Um, if you want to go even cheaper with a little more stars and scrubs, Thabo Cephalosha was picking up minutes about 20, 25 per game towards the end of the stretch there. So he's a guy to kind of keep an eye on if you need to bump up like an extra player to a tier one guy. I like him. As far as Jeff Teague goes, it's not a great matchup for him, but Teague is a guy who, price considered, is going to be pretty cheap in comparison to other guys. Worth looking tournaments, but I'll definitely stay away in cash games.
Yeah, I would pay in the 7K range for him. If he's 8K, I wouldn't touch him. 6K, I'm all over him. So we'll see what the pricing is. I think it's out. I just haven't looked. But the matchup is tough, but we all know he has the ability to explode.
Yeah, I mean, he's 6,100 there on DK, and he has 7,000 on FanDuel, so it's a little bit site dependent with Teague. Dennis Schroeder, interesting GPP play because he is a guy who comes off the bench. If Teague tends to struggle, they have been known this season to rely on Schroeder to come in and put some points up off the bench.
Yeah, exactly. And especially with this being the playoffs, I think he's going to be on a shorter leash than usual, even though he was already on a short leash.
Mm-hmm.
So it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out with the Schroeder Teague drama there. But I think Teague will get his opportunity, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah, definitely. On the Boston side of things, obviously Isaiah Thomas was the leading scorer. On that Boston side, he's an interesting play. I think price considered, I'm not the biggest fan just because Teague is a decent defender. I think I'm more so leaning on Jay Crowder, Jared Sullinger, even Avery Bradley to really pick up most of the scoring from the Celtics in this series.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I pretty much like everybody on the Celtics side, including Marcus Smart, Evan Turner as nice value plays. Everybody with the exception of Isaiah Thomas, unfortunately, because he's the only one that has a really tough matchup. But like you mentioned, a 6,100 price tag on DraftKings is definitely intriguing and good for tournaments.
Yeah, I like that. And as you mentioned, Evan Turner, great value play. He's a guy who, six man off the bench, comes in, controls the game, production as far as across the board, assists, rebounds, points, you got it. And Sullinger is a guy who minutes have been up and down, but really a cheap price tag. Great matchup against Atlanta because they do struggle defending centers and they do struggle rebounding the ball. And Sullinger, as wildly inconsistent as he is probably going to be worth a look still in this first round.
Yeah, I actually love him this series. A lot of people are going to be off him because of the minutes, but I really think he's going to play a lot of minutes. It's the playoffs, and it's a great matchup for him against the Hawks, the smaller Hawks.
Yep, definitely. And here we go. I'm going to say Celtics in 7. I do think this one's going to be one of the better series to watch out of the first round, and I think it's a toss-up. But I'm rolling with my heart on this one. Celtics in 7.
I won't answer this question to disappoint you.
Oh man,
I honestly have the Hawks in 7.
All right.
I think this is going to be a fun one to watch. Probably the best one to watch out of all of them, honestly.
I'm
but I
definitely in
got the
agreement.
hot.
But this is
I got
also going to be this is your last show, so you're done here.
the. I guess I'm cut. No more writing. No more pods. I'm done.
Moving over to the Western Conference, and this is where you start to get the high scoring teams going against each other. In Golden State, Houston, that's one where there's just tons of fantasy production on both sides, and it's kind of an easy one to dissect because you like Curry, you like Harden if you're banking on Houston to have any shot in this game or in this series. But there's also some decent value, and I think you look at Andre Iguodala has been roughed up down the stretch, but he's below 4,500 on both sides. And I'll be looking at him as small forward as far as a guy who's going to come off the bench. And you remember what he did in the playoffs last year. He was, kind of the X factor.
Yeah, big game Iggy. I want to say he was 3,900 on FanDuel, which is an absolute steal. So you can get him, picked up Curry or Harden, and I think that's one heck of a lineup already.
Yeah, definitely. And that matchup, obviously we're looking at the stars. You can look at Klay Thompson and GPPs if you don't want to pay up for Curry. Draymond Green, obviously, in play. I mean, we've been, we don't want to be broken records here because we've been referring the Warriors all season long, but it's still continuously going to be a good spot. They're going to be the highest total team every night that they play. So they're the guys that you want to get exposure to and really build your lineups around.
For sure. Clay, I agree, tournament play, but one other guy to look at, I don't know if he's cash or tournament. I just love him so much as Andrew Bogut. I think they're going to need him to play big minutes against a big Dwight Howard. I think he's the guy that matches up best. He can rebound, get assists, and put up a couple points.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we saw him go through big stretches last year. He's another cheap center to like. I definitely like that call. You look at what he's done this season. I mean, he's averaged 11-11 with 3 blocks in 2 games against Houston. So, yeah, Bogut's a really nice call. I mean, on that Houston side, it's really hard, and it's kind of hard to like a lot of those other guys, but you can look at Ariza in tournaments, Howard in tournaments, just because Howard's price really came down.
Yeah, I was going to mention Ariza. I was hoping you didn't mention him, but I love him this series besides a tough matchup because, they're going to double team Harden at times. They're going to leave Ariza in the corner wide open for 3. If he starts knocking him down, he can get hot, have a big fantasy night.
Yeah, this one's going to be a ton of production. One guy we can look at is Michael Beasley, kind of a cheaper guy. I know, but he's worth mentioning. He's, not the most consistent, but if Houston needs, a shot of offense off the bench, he's the guy to do it.
Nah, he's the guy. His usage rate is ridiculous off the bench. Can be inconsistent, but I think it's a great tournament play if you're looking for upside.
Yeah, definitely. Anyone else you're liking from that game, for that series?
No, that's pretty much it. I'm not a fan of Brewer. Maybe a little Beverly if he's cheap enough in the 4K range. I'll have a piece of him, but that's pretty much it.
Yeah,
Oh,
definitely.
Barnes.
Yeah.
Forgot about Harrison Barnes.
Yeah, him too. And really, I'm expecting the Warriors sweep here.
Really?
Yeah, there's no way Houston's team.
I'll say Golden State in 5.
5. All right, fair enough. You're giving Harden a one shot at home.
It's going to be Ariza.
All right. He carries the load one night.
There's going to be one game where he carries the load, and Harden has like 15 assists, and that's the game they win.
All right. Next one, you got San Antonio and Memphis. This is far the least attractive DFS matchup on the 4 games in the West. And really, I don't see Memphis even staying close in all 4 games. Maybe one at home, they keep it somewhat close. Like we've been dealing all season, I still think the Spurs are going to have somewhat a limited fantasy production against this Memphis team.
Yeah, it's unfortunate all the injuries they've had this year.
Yeah, definitely. And I just think you're asking Zach Randolph to carry the load. Like, you're looking – Popovich is just going to be able to destroy Memphis. And I think outside of Kawhi Leonard and LaMarcus Aldridge, I mean, those are the only real 2 names that I'm going to be throwing out there. And I don't even think they're going to hit their true upside in this series.
Yeah, I'm with you there. But I have a question for you. Is Dave Joger the coach of the year? With all the injuries he's gone through, still making the playoffs?
I don't think so. I don't think so. I can't see that happening.
I think it's going to be Kerr, but I think he's pretty deserving as well.
But they had such a good stretch heading into the year. Like they completely were so up and down, and they're going to get swept here. It's nah, I can't see
I'm just
it.
trying to make a case for him.
All right, all right. I mean, that's fair enough, but this isn't. We're not looking at coaches as far as rostering them in my DraftKings lineup. So,
That's in the years to come.
but as far as the other Spurs guys, any bench players you're kind of considering that's not Boban? Are you looking at Boban?
Oh no, I'm not. Bench guys for the Spurs. Honestly, nobody.
Yeah, I mean, this
Nobody
is a
comes
pretty
to mind.
unappealing series. I mean, really, Memphis guys not worthy of playing against the number one defense in the league.
No. Honestly, the only guy I'd look at on the Memphis side is probably Randolph. Like you mentioned, that's about it.
Yeah, me too. You see the Spurs sweeping this one?
This is the only matchup I see being a sweep.
Yep.
Grizzlies in 4.
Yep. Spurs in 4.
No, no Grizzlies.
What, Grizzlies in 4?
Spurs in 4. I wonder if you put money on that and it actually happens, how much profit you make.
Yeah, we'll have to take a look at that because that could be interesting. Even if it's
$1,
$10.
$1 will make you 2,000 probably.
Looking at the next series here, OKC and Dallas. Thunder swept this series, and they are going to be pretty popular plays. And as the season rolled on, we saw Durant and Westbrook be the obvious targets, but they speak for themselves. But one guy who I think is going to be an interesting DFS guy in this playoffs is Enes Kanter, who's a cheap center, high usage guy off the bench. He'll be able to take advantage of the soft front court that is Dallas.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I thought you were going to steal my guy, but looking at him, I also like him off the bench. It's going to be a close series. You mentioned that weak power forward centers they have defensively, so that's a good call.
Who was the guy you thought I was going to be stealing?
Darren Williams. It's going to be a fast-paced game. A lot of people are going to be off him. He's been dealing with injuries, but he's got a matchup with Russell Westbrook, so you can see him playing harder, more energy, faster tempo, and I think he's going to have some big games in the series.
Yeah, it's a good call. I mean, he's cheap. He has played well against the Thunder this season. Yeah, I definitely like that. And if he was to go down, if we're looking because he's had his injury troubles this year, JJ Barea, Raymond Felton would be the guys to pick up the usage in that backcourt. I do like Wes Matthews as a cheap shooting guard play. His price did come up a little bit just because he picked up bigger role. And obviously, if Dallas has any chance, Dirk is going to have to show off his vintage self.
Yeah, Dirk is the man. What's his price tag? Wesley?
Matthews there, it's 4,400 on DK, so it's not too bad. He's kind of priced around those other names, and then he's 5K on FanDuel.
Yeah, I'd pay the 4,400 on DraftKings besides the tough matchup against Andre Robertson. But for that price tag and the minutes he's going to get, probably 40 minutes a game, it's definitely worth it for cash games.
Yep, definitely. You're looking at Serge Ibaka at all. It's a nice matchup, but the guy who's been kind of, fourth, third as far as, offensive rotations go behind Durant and Westbrook as far as, putting up points.
Yeah, I'm definitely considering him in my lineups as well. Somebody's got to grab the rebounds, and if one of the two guys are in trouble, Serge is the guy that steps up.
Yeah, definitely. Where do you see that one finishing?
I see. Wow, this is a tough one. I got OKC in 6.
Okay. That's a good one. I got OKC in 5. I think they're just way too much offensive firepower. Dallas will steal one at home, but outside of that, I can't see much going on there.
Yeah, you mentioned the series is 4-0.
Yeah.
But Dallas has kept these games close, except for one. It's all been 3-point, 2-point games.
Yeah, these have been great games to watch, and this will be another fun series.
Yeah, besides the Warriors, which everybody's going to want to watch, I think OKC and Dallas is probably the next on my list as much watch TV.
Yeah, definitely. Last one here, we're looking at the Clippers in Portland. Trailblazers, Clippers lead this one 3-1. As far as games go, they haven't been particularly high scoring as far as the Western Conference goes. You're looking at the first couple matches here: 102-91, 102-87, 109-98, 94-96. So you didn't get up into the 110s with these two offenses, but this probably is the matchup that has a lot of star power in this one that you can build your lineups around as well. It kind of compares to Houston and Golden State for me.
Yeah, I'm with you there. And who's that top star you love out of all the guys on this game?
It's Paul for me. I think Chris Paul's the guy. Although, really, I mean, you look at DeAndre Jordan, he's got a great matchup, but he kind of takes a back seat now with Blake Griffin back. But still, I think Paul's the guy. And you could even get contrarian and kind of roll with Lillard more times than not in the first round here.
Yeah, my guy's big game Lillard. This guy, he's going to have to carry the team to compete with Chris Paul, DeAndre Jordan, and Blake Griffin, who's back. So, there's going to be times where he puts up a dud, but then there's going to be times where he scores 55 fantasy points.
Yeah, definitely. I like that. As far as from the Clippers side, guy off the bench that I like, and I even like both shooting guards, is J.J. Redick, Jamal Crawford. Crawford, that high usage guy, 6-man. Redick in a solid matchup against McCollum. Really, all three shooting guards. I mean, this is the series with the most shooting guards to really keep an eye on.
Yeah, I'm with you with that Redick call. He, especially on DraftKings where you get that extra 0.5 for a 3-point shot. So if his shot's falling in, he can have a huge night. And Crawford is the main guy off the bench and is the highest usage rate guy on the second unit.
Yeah, definitely. I like Jordan that front court matchup. I like Mason Plumlee there. He's kind of an interesting guy to really keep an eye as far as another cheap center to go because really, I mean, outside of Whiteside, Jordan, Howard, you're not really paying up for anyone else other than Drummond as well. But Plumlee in a great spot. Clippers really struggled against centers this season, and even with Jordan and Griffin, they struggled rebounding.
Do you prefer him for cash or tournaments?
I like him in both formats. I think he has the upside for GPPs and pretty safe option as far as cash games go. I think him and Ed Davis are going to be some guys to really look at as far as value, and Mo Harkless as well.
Yeah, that's the other guy I was going to mention, Ed Davis. He started picking it up towards the end of the year, and hopefully he carries that into the playoffs and he gets enough minutes to be a nice value play.
Yeah, definitely. So, your prediction for this one?
This one is going to be a tough one, but I don't think Lillard can carry the load all by himself, unfortunately. So I got the Clippers in 6.
Okay, I like that. I'm going to say Clippers in 7. I think Lillard can't get over the hump, but he does carry it for 7 games. That's going to be a fun series to watch with those two teams going back and forth.
Yeah, Lillard and Paul is going to be one heck of a matchup. Right next to, not even close, but it's the next closest thing to Curry and Harden.
Yeah, definitely. So that's going to wrap it up here at the Mints to Win It with our first round coverage. We'll be back during the second round with the same sort of breakdown. So check out dailyfantasycafe.com for all our great tools and content. Don't forget, we will have our cheat sheets up daily for each slate.